It was a Thursday, I remember that much. Because Lily's school newsletter was still pinned to the fridge, reminding me that Friday was dress as a book character day. I'd been up late finishing some freelance work and was dozing in front of the TV, when the silence of the early morning pressed too heavily against the window panes. Normally, at 6 a.m. in late August, the eastern sky would blush pale, heralding the sunrise. That morning, it remained black and star-speckled, as if the night had decided to never leave. At first, I didn't think too much of it. I lived in a small town in the north of England, a place where the weather sometimes played tricks on you. Perhaps a heavy, low-hanging storm cloud was blocking out the sunrise. Perhaps something was wrong with my watch, or maybe it was just some bizarre meteorological event. I paced to the front room window, peered through the glass, and saw nothing but distant street lamps illuminating empty roads. I could faintly hear the hum of cars, but it seemed subdued. The sky overhead was shockingly clear. No clouds, just countless stars that I'd never normally see. It felt as though a curtain had been pulled away, revealing a night sky richer and darker than any I'd ever known. By 7 a.m, Lily woke up. My daughter was 9, with bright eyes and a curious mind. She wandered into the living room, rubbing the sleep from her face. "Dad?" she asked, voice muffled by her dressing gown. "Why is it still dark?" Her tone was more curious than frightened. "I'm not sure, love," I said, flicking through the TV channels. The BBC Morning News showed a pale-faced presenter, her voice wavering. Across the bottom of the screen, a ticker scrolled rapidly with words I'd never imagined. Urgent alert. Sun not visible anywhere in Northern Hemisphere. Government scientists investigating. I tried to keep calm for Lily's sake. Might be some sort of eclipse, I told her, even as my heart pounded. But no eclipse could hide the sun from an entire hemisphere indefinitely. In the next hour, the world went from confusion to panic. Radio presenters sounded frantic. The TV broadcast emergency bulletins every few minutes. Neighbours stepped out into their front gardens, flashlights flickering across terrified faces. Some people got into their cars and drove aimlessly, as if searching for dawn down the next road. I stood with Lily by the front door, hugging her close as our breath fogged in the August air, which seemed suddenly colder than it should have been. By 9 a.m, we knew something had gone terribly wrong. The sun had not just failed to rise here, it had vanished entirely. Scientific talking heads on TV tried to explain. The sun was simply gone. Instruments pointed at its coordinates, found nothing. The Earth was hurtling through space alone, no longer anchored by the star that had nurtured it. Gravity, they said, was a delicate balance. Without the sun, we would drift into the void, temperatures falling steadily. They were still working on understanding the how and the why. Some unimaginable cosmic event, perhaps, but the fact remained. The centre of our solar system had blinked out like a candle snuffed. I tried not to let Lily see my trembling hands. She understood enough to be scared. "Is it going to get cold, Dad?" she asked in a small voice. I nodded, forcing a weak smile. "A bit, honey. We'll need to keep warm." Within hours, the world changed. By noon, a meaningless word now. The temperature had dropped noticeably. People flooded supermarkets for bottled water, tinned food, torches, batteries, anything. I looked at our modest kitchen cupboards and realised we didn't have much. Just the usual groceries to get us through the week. If society fell apart, we'd need more, much more. But venturing outside into the panic-filled streets seemed risky. Through the window, I saw a neighbour sprinting down the road, carrying 2 large petrol cans. Another tried to break into the corner shop's shuttered door. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Everything was collapsing faster than I'd ever imagined possible. I made Lily a promise. We'll stay indoors for now. We've got blankets, candles, and the gas hob still works. We'll boil water if we need to. She nodded, trusting me as children do. My chest tightened. I needed to be strong for her. By what would have been mid-afternoon, the news channels started going dark, one by one. The government broadcast a final emergency message. We urge calm. Authorities are working with international partners to find a solution. Conserve energy and resources. Stay safe. A solution to losing the sun. It felt ludicrous. I held Lily's hand, and we sat in the living room, lit by a single lamp. Thankfully, electricity still flowed for the moment. Outside, all I could hear was screaming, punctuated by the odd gunshot. The armed police or the army must have been mobilised. I nearly jumped out of my skin. My quiet little English town, where the loudest event might have been a drunken argument on a Saturday night, was now a war zone of desperate humans. I shut the curtains and locked the door. Lily huddled under a blanket. Her school uniform lay untouched where she'd set it out the night before, as if we'd stepped into a different universe overnight. In a way, we had. At some point, we lost all radio signal. My phone showed no network. The internet was down. We were completely cut off. I found an old battery-powered radio in the attic, but it only emitted static. I thought of trying to reason with neighbours, form some kind of communal support, but the screams and shouts outside warned me away. Without sunlight, people had surrendered to their darkest instincts. We were animals in a cage together, and the cage was getting colder every minute. Time blurred. Without day or night, I measured time by Lily's hunger and the slow tick of my watch. The house grew colder. I dragged blankets from every closet, layered them on the couch, and we huddled together. I gave Lily the last of the bread and jam for supper, if you could call it that, and tried to pretend that everything would be okay. She asked softly, "Dad, will the sun ever come back?" I hesitated. I wanted to lie, to promise her it would, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Instead, I said, "I don't know, sweetheart, but I'm here with you." I pulled her close, kissing her hair. She smelled of soap and childhood, something innocent and safe. The next day, if we could call it that, was colder still. Frost crept along the windowsills, even though it should have been summer. I ventured out for supplies, while Lily dozed fitfully on the couch. Streets were littered with debris. A car lay flipped on its side near the end of the road. A broken lamppost sparked feebly. People moved in small groups, hunched and suspicious. Faces lit by torches and phone screens until their batteries gave out. I skirted around them, heart pounding. I found a small corner shop with smashed windows and grabbed tins of beans, packets of noodles, water bottles. All I could carry. When a shape loomed behind me, I turned, raising my arms defensively. It was an old man, eyes wide with terror. He grunted, too exhausted or scared to confront me. I fled, stumbling over broken glass, rushing home. Back at the house, I barricaded the door with a chest of drawers. Lily woke and looked at me with huge, frightened eyes. "I'm just making sure we're safe," I said. She nodded solemnly. We boiled some noodles by candlelight. The gas flame flickered weakly. Already the pressure was dropping. How long before the grid failed completely? Outside, the temperature continued to plummet. Reports from the last broadcasts said we'd start seeing snowfall in places that never expected it. Sure enough, I opened the curtains a crack and saw tiny flakes drifting down, reflecting in the cold glow of the distant stars. My breath misted in front of me. I wrapped Lily in my old coat, the one I wore hiking years ago. We wore gloves indoors now, scarves and hats. It felt like a camping trip at the end of the world. As the days stretched into endless night, death seeped quietly through the town. We heard less shouting. Perhaps people had hunkered down or scattered. Perhaps they'd succumbed to hunger or violence. The lights went out at last. With no electricity, the darkness in our home became absolute, broken only by dim candlelight. I cursed my lack of preparation. I never kept a generator or spare fuel. Why would I? Before this, the worst scenario I could imagine was a power cut during a storm. Lily tried to stay brave. She asked me to tell her stories. I told her about when she was a baby and how she used to crawl around the living room giggling. I told her fairy tales and fables, even though every word I spoke was muted by the icy silence outside. My voice trembled at times, but she pretended not to notice. She asked, "Dad, what happens if we run out of food?" I took a deep breath. "We'll ration what we have for as long as possible. If we need more, I'll find some. Don't worry." "Are we going to freeze?" Her voice was so small, it nearly broke me. I stroked her hair gently. "I won't let that happen." But deep down, I didn't know how to keep that promise. We tried to block one room off to maintain heat. We sealed the living room door with towels, pushed rugs against the cracks, lit every candle we had. We huddled under blankets. Still, it was never truly warm. Our fingertips went numb. We cuddled close, sharing body heat. Outside, the eternal night deepened. Stars blazed overhead with merciless clarity. Without the sun's light, the earth drifted into cosmic darkness, temperature falling each passing hour. One desperate morning, I decided we needed more supplies and something to burn for warmth. Our furniture wouldn't last long if we started burning it, and the gas stove had died during the night. Lily's lips had turned a slight shade of blue, and her voice had grown faint. I told her, "I have to go out for a while to get firewood, anything that burns. I'll find more food too. She clung to my arm, eyes watering. No, Dad, don't leave me. My heart twisted. I'll be back, I promise. Stay under the blankets. I gave her the last chocolate bar to nibble on while I was gone. Count to 1,000, slowly. I'll be home before you're done, I said, forcing a smile. She managed a brave nod. I ventured into a world of frozen silence. The snow had thickened, crunching under my boots. Torches were useless. Batteries drained too fast in the cold. I relied on the dim starlight and a small wind-up flashlight. Houses stood dark and empty. I tried the neighbour's door. Unlocked. Inside, I found overturned furniture, broken glass, no sign of the occupants. I snatched up blankets, a small propane camping stove, some tinned soup. Luck at last. I paused in the hallway, listening. A faint scratching came from upstairs. My blood froze. An animal? A desperate survivor? Cautiously, I climbed the steps, my flashlight beam trembling. In the master bedroom, I saw a shape huddled in the corner. A man, or what was left of him, breathing shallowly. His eyes reflected my light. He croaked. Help! So cold. My throat tightened. I couldn't carry him. I had no resources to save everyone. If I lingered, there was a risk of confrontation or being trapped. I'm sorry, I whispered, voice cracking. He reached out a trembling hand, pleading silently. I turned away, tears stinging my eyes. In this darkness, compassion was a luxury I couldn't afford. Lily waited at home. I fled with my loot, feeling sick to my stomach. Outside, the stars glittered, uncaring. The wind bit my cheeks, and I stumbled over a body, half buried in snow. The world had become a graveyard. I hated the universe for abandoning us. When I returned, Lily was crying softly under the blankets. I'm here, I said, rushing to her. She flung her arms around me, sobbing with relief. I thought maybe you wouldn't come back, she managed between chattering teeth. I always will, I said, holding her close. I showed her the camping stove and soup tins. We opened a tin and warmed it as best we could. The lukewarm soup felt like heaven on our tongues. I tried not to think about the man I'd left behind, or the countless others dying in silence around us. Day after day, no, that word was meaningless now. Time after time, we fought for survival. The temperature continued to drop. Frost covered the inside walls. We wore 3 layers of clothing. Lily's hair became brittle with ice crystals if she strayed too far from the candle's weak glow. We started burning books and small pieces of furniture, anything to stave off the cold for a little while. I hated destroying them, but I hated seeing Lily shiver more. Outside, the air grew thinner, or maybe it just felt that way because of the cold shock. We struggled to breathe properly. Food dwindled. Once, I tried venturing further, to the high street, hoping to find a hardware store with firewood or coal. What I found was chaos frozen in time. Cars piled together, shop windows broken, frozen corpses curled in doorways. I took what I could: a crowbar, a bag of coal briquettes from a garden centre, some biscuits. Back home, Lily's eyes lit up at the biscuits, but her smile was weak. She coughed a lot now, and that worried me more than anything. We developed a ritual. Every morning, as dictated by my watch, I'd wind the flashlight and check outside. Then we'd eat a small meal, if we had one, and huddle together, telling stories. I tried to keep Lily's spirits up. I told her about summers past, about beaches and warm sunlight, my throat tightening at the memory of something lost forever, about hot chocolate on Christmas morning. She listened with rapt attention, as if these stories were fantastical tales from a distant planet. In a way, they were. Eventually, the camping stove gave out. The propane froze or ran empty, I couldn't tell which. We resorted to lighting small fires in a metal bucket I'd found in the shed. Smoke filled the room, making us cough, but at least it gave a flicker of warmth. We had to crack a window slightly to let fumes out, letting more of the cold seep in. Lily's cough worsened. I cradled her head in my lap, stroking her hair. Her skin felt like ice. "Dad," she whispered, "I want to sleep and not wake up. Is that bad?" Panic seized me. I forced a smile I didn't feel. "Don't say that, love. We'll get through this, I promise." My eyes were wet, and I was grateful for the darkness that hid my tears. We tried to sleep in shifts, though what good that did in eternal night, I couldn't say. Once, as Lily slept, I allowed myself to cry properly, silent sobs shaking my body. I cursed the empty universe that had stolen our sun. How cruel it was that we'd die in darkness, separated from all meaning. My only solace was that we had each other. A noise outside startled me, a scraping at the door. I grabbed the crowbar. The drawer barricade had frozen to the floorboards. I called out softly, "Who's there?" No answer, just a low moan. I held my breath. Eventually, the sound receded. Probably another starving soul, too weak to break in, or maybe just the wind. Either way, I didn't dare open that door again. Existence stretched on. We were running low on everything. Tinned beans had never tasted so precious. We sipped melted snow from a saucepan, careful to boil it first to kill bacteria, though soon we wouldn't have the fuel. Lily coughed up phlegm streaked with blood. I held her close, trying not to panic, trying to be strong. Without proper heat and medicine, she was slipping away. The temperature was unimaginable now. I'd lost all feeling in my toes. Frost coated every surface. Icicles hung from ceiling corners. Our breaths crystallized instantly. Lily shivered violently, and I wrapped every blanket around her small body. I tried to light a fire, but I was out of flammables. The bucket held only ash. I considered the door. Maybe I could tear it off its hinges and burn it, but my fingers were numb, and the crowbar felt like lead in my hands. I looked at Lily, my beautiful daughter, eyes half-lidded with exhaustion, and felt a surge of desperate determination. I'd do anything to give her one more moment of warmth. I took off one of my coats, and wrapped it around her. She mumbled, "Dad, you'll freeze." "It's okay," I said, voice shaking. "I'm warm enough." A lie, of course. But a father's duty was to lie if it meant comforting her. I picked up a photo frame from the mantel. Us at the seaside, sun glaring off of the waves. Hard to believe such a thing had ever existed. I smashed the frame and burned the wooden back in a tiny flame. The smell of burning varnish stung my nose. Over that tiny flicker, I warmed my hands, then pressed them gently to Lily's cheeks, trying to pass on the little heat I'd gathered. Her eyelids fluttered. She smiled faintly. "Remember the park, Dad?" she whispered. "The swing set, and how you pushed me so high, I thought I could touch the clouds." I forced a laugh, tears slipping down my face. "Of course I remember. You were so brave. You almost touched them, I swear." "I wish I could see clouds again," she said dreamily. "And the sun behind them, shining." Her voice trailed off. I wanted to scream at the sky, to demand the sun's return. The silence and cold only deepened, unmoved by human sorrow. I don't know how long we stayed like that, locked in a losing battle against a universe that had abandoned us. My watch had stopped, the battery drained in the cold. Perhaps weeks had passed since the disappearance of the sun, or maybe just days. But we were near the end. My body shook uncontrollably. Lily was slipping into a stillness that terrified me. Her breathing was shallow and soft. I kissed her forehead, telling her I loved her, over and over. She murmured something soft that I couldn't catch. I pressed my ear close and heard one word. Light. I pulled her tighter, wrapping myself around her as a shield against the icy void. If I could give her my warmth, my life, I would, but I had nothing left to give. My heart hammered uselessly in a world without dawn. The candles had all burned down long ago. The darkness was absolute now, except for the pale glow of distant stars outside the frosted window. I looked up at them, trying to find any sign of hope. A comet's tail, a distant galaxy. But they were just cold, indifferent points of light. I don't know if I slept or slipped into a trance, but I remember Lily's breathing slowing to a whisper, then growing faint. I whispered her name, pressing my cheek to hers. Her skin was cold, her body limp. Panic surged in me, and I shook her gently. "Lily! Lily, wake up!" No response. I tried to feel her pulse with numb fingers. I thought I felt something, but it might have been my own trembling. I called her name again and again, voice cracking. I must have cried out. In that timeless void, my voice bounced off the frozen walls. I held her close, rocking her. I told her about the sun, how bright it was, how warm it felt on our skin. I promised her that somewhere, somehow, light existed, that she wasn't alone. Maybe I felt her finger twitch once, or maybe it was just my imagination. She was still, and the silence was absolute. My own strength ebbed. Without Lily, there was no reason to fight anymore. My body ached, My lungs burned with cold air. The weight of despair pressed down on me. I prayed to any god that might hear me, begged for mercy, but none came. In those final moments, I huddled with my daughter's still form, pressing my forehead to hers. The darkness seemed to whisper, an empty hush. Memories played behind my eyes. Lily laughing on a summer's day, sunlight tangled in her hair, the smell of cut grass and distant lawnmowers. The warmth of that memory felt more real than anything around me. I clung to it like a lifeline. My eyelids grew heavy. I could no longer feel my own heartbeat. The earth, without the sun, was a dying rock, hurtling through infinite space. I thought of billions of lives, all snuffed out. Perhaps some people still fought somewhere, lighting fires, hoping for rescue. Perhaps others, like us, had already surrendered. I kissed Lily's forehead one last time. "I love you," I whispered, voice lost in the darkness. Then I let go of fear and fell into that endless night. In my mind's eye, I saw the sun rising, bright and golden, warming her small hand in mine. In that vision, at least, we found peace. For more terrifying creepypasta horror stories, check out the playlist or the video on screen.